Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Beneath the Surface, where we focus on political, social and Islamic affairs. Today we'll be discussing the martyrdom of Imam Ali ibn Musa al-Ridha alayhi salam. And joining us today on the show is an Islamic lecturer, Dr. Sayyid HassanSader. Thank you very much for being with us, Sayyid. Let's start off with Imam al-Ridha alayhi salam. We know that he was a man of great wisdom and he helped a lot of communities, not only the people in Medina. Can you tell us more about him and his character?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. It is quite obvious to anyone who would study the lives of the Imams alayhim salam, all of them, that their position in society was actually for the society as a whole. In modern times, unfortunately, Muslims on both sides of the argument, they tend to stick to their own sects and their own schools of thought. When they think of the ummah, they think of a divided ummah. They think they are the ummah and the rest of the people are misguided. The Imams of Ahlul Bayt and Imam Ridha alayhi salam, being one of them, had a different take on this. They were there as the Imams, the leaders, the guiders of all mankind and of all the ummah around them. Imam Ridha lived in Medina for many years, in fact most of his life, and I think this is a historical fact that we tend to overlook. We know that our Imams, most of them are buried out in Iraq, Imam Ridha in Iran, but actually most of their lives they lived it in Medina. Medina was very rich culturally and historically. There were many study circles going in Medina, as well as in Kufa at the time, but Medina was a central focal point. And within this rich society, historically, culturally, religiously, Imam Ridha alayhi salam tried through his akhlaq, through his narrations, to build this Muslim ummah, to show the world what the message of his grandfather Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi truly is. One of the unique features of Imam al-Ridha, we all know that the Abbasi state was very advanced. And here we talk about modernity, and we're not talking about ethically advanced, we're talking about modernity. We're talking about physics, chemistry, astronomy, medicine. And with modernity, I'm sure people appreciate, the standards of living tend to be elevated. People tend to live in a more relaxed, advanced forms of human civilization in modernity, not in ethics. One of the unique features of Imam Ridha alayhi salam is that despite this elevation of the status of society, he had a very basic lifestyle, intentionally. So society was going in one direction, ease of life, advancement, technology, the specific term to it. He had a very basic Zahid lifestyle on purpose to remind the ummah, not just by word but by practice, that yes, we could be very modern and advanced in technology, but we should not forget that our main focus in our life is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that our attachment to these to the physical aspect of life should not distract us from the focus on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that the fact that we need actually the minimum from this life to continue to focus to achieve our duties.
Speaking on that point, as today in this day and age, everything around us is technology based, and modernity has advanced a lot in the sense of, we have a lot of gadgets and a lot of equipment we tend to use, and we can't actually not have them. For example, our phones, many of us are attached to them. If the battery dies, we get very angry or upset. How can we learn from our holy Imam to not, focus on these material aspects, which some people may argue they use it for Islam and to better themselves, but as a whole, how can we learn from him?
Of course, we should be using all these gadgets and all forms of technology and advancement, fi sabilillah, for the sake of humanity, to help others, to help ourselves, to improve, to develop, to perfect ourselves, our families and our society, no doubt about it. But the challenge is the following. By being fully attached to technology and these high standards of living, we're actually becoming less patient, less resilient, less able to face the challenges of life. So, which is quite a negative side to technology. That's the aspect that we should be sort of paying more attention to. We should have this, I wouldn't say balance, I would say you focus on being resilient and patient, and you use the gadget and you use the technology. And going to Hajj or Mashi to Arba'in or any of these forms of ibadat that involve a bit of exertion, a bit of that requires a bit of patience and toughness and perseverance, are stations in our lives that we should utilize to reset our standards. That actually, yes, I have central heating and I have a phone and I have a car, but I would train myself mentally and physically to walk, to put up with a bit of heat, a bit of cold. I will persevere. I wouldn't just wait for a car to pick me up, or wait for the temperature to be right to do something, or if it rains slightly I just hide indoors. No, I would actually persevere. I would build my character, but I would use the phone as well.
And this actually reminds me of what Sayyid Baqir al-Sadr once said, that it's always best for a human to kind of challenge themselves, as they're able to challenge themselves. When the challenge just comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they'll be able to accept it with open hands. And I believe that's what he also learnt from the Imams.
Absolutely, absolutely. Even by the way, even when we talk about our current Imam, the awaited Imam, Imam Mahdi, Ajjalallahu lahu al-faraj, we have to take the whole package. Shouldn't be selected. And the whole package says that in one of the narrations narrated from Imam al-Sadiq, salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi, when one of his followers asked him about Al-Qa'im, Al-Imam al-Mahdi. He asked him about him. And his questions were around when will he appear? Just trying to, someone eager for this victory to establish justice on the whole of earth. So Imam al-Sadiq replied with the following question: Ma lakum wal qa'im? Why do you ask about him? And he described to this man, a follower of Imam al-Sadiq, he described to him some of the features of this awaited Imam. That وَمَا لِبَاسُهُ إِلَّا الْغَلِيظ, he will not wear except what is rough of clothes. He will eat the basic food. He is not a man who will bring you and make you kings. He's a man who's there to establish justice. His lifestyle is not the easiest of lifestyles. And in fact, we have one of the narrations that talk about when the Imam will appear and he will deliver one of his first sermon in Mecca, Ajjalallahu lahu al-faraj. One of the phrases that the Imams describe him will say is that he will order his followers and yatawassadu turab. They will sleep on the floor, on the sand. So we should be preparing ourselves, for higher standards of resilience, of toughness, of patience. We need to be able to overcome challenges. We can't take technology and the basic availabilities of modern life to have a very soft approach, a very non-patient approach towards life. Nowadays, if you stand in a queue or if you can't get the order in on the phone, you get frustrated. If the internet is a bit slower and it's not downloading the video, be it an Islamic video, you find one of us the pulse is getting higher and we're sort of not very patient. But we shouldn't do that. And one of the main features of Imam Rida alayhi salam is his zuhud. Despite the advancements of society, despite modernity, he had a unique approach to life.
There are many narrations that state our holy Imam used to dress in silk clothing because that's what was expected of him at the time. However, when people questioned him, he then showed them that underneath that silk clothing, he has very rough, textured clothing. And many people then say that we as a society have to also live by that and not by the very advanced or designer, let's say, clothing because we should follow the steps of our holy Imam. How do you think we should go about that?
No, there's no doubt that we're not asking our brothers and sisters to wear rough clothes or old clothes or clothes which are not in line with sort of the expectation of society. This is why I do not think that wearing for example, for my brothers, wearing a dishdasha will make you more religious, because the dishdasha is a form of clothes to the Middle East. There are other cultures. And of course, the Indian culture has a slightly different cultural clothing, and the Arabs have a slightly different cultural clothing, and the Iranians and the Africans and the Chinese. By wearing your cultural clothes in the Western world, the expectation is that you're appearing more religious, and I don't think that's right. By all means, wear whatever you like, and I'm not dictating on people what to wear. But this sort of association that wearing a cultural clothes means that you're more religious, or wearing a clothes that does not fit with the rest of society make people spot you as being more religious, I think it's wrong. Dress whatever you like, in any sort of according to any culture you like, but that does not make you religious. What makes you religious is the core. Appear appropriate, appear clean, appear presentable. But even when you're clean and presentable and appropriate, that does not mean that you should be taking such a soft approach to life. You shouldn't be a person who is ready to run away from the challenge the moment you face it. This is the sort of root cause of the problem that is affecting even our marriages, even the families today. The moment you face a challenge as a couple, as a family, people run away, they divorce, they let go because of this whole approach to life. Yes, you're surrounded by technology. Yes, dress appropriately, but make sure the core is resilient. Make sure the core is strong. I remember in the 90s when Sayyid Muhammad al-Sadr re-established Salat al-Jum'ah in Iraq. It was hot. The sun of Iraq is many people now, because of the ziyarah, they're familiar with it. It's a blazing desert. It's hot. And the people were praying in the mosque of Kufa, and the Sayyid was aware of the heat. And he said, it's fine. I know you are you're facing the heat, but it's fine. I want you to build your character. I want you to build yourselves. Be a bit tough. Put up with pressure so you can face future challenges.
When we look at our holy Imam, his mother was actually from North Africa, and within our communities we have it if someone wasn't to marry from their own culture or their own country, they're kind of like frowned upon. How come it's not just Imam Rida's mother who's from North Africa? We have many of our Imams where they married from different countries and cultures. Can you tell us firstly why they went about this, and how come our own community don't accept it when our own Imams did it?
No, subhanAllah, several, as you stated, several of our Imams, their mothers are not Arab. One is black, one is from North Africa, from the Barbar, one from Morocco, and so on. So this sort of cultural integration and Allah's wisdom is there to set the standards, really. The standards that are لا فرق بين عربي وأعجمي. There is no difference between an Arab and non-Arab. It's the taqwa. It's not your culture, it's not your language. We can overcome the language barrier. We can overcome the cultural norms and expectations. I'm not saying we should challenge them, and I'm not asking for a cultural revolution, but I'm saying we can overcome everything. Any challenge, any barrier between two people, as friends, as a couple, as two communities, we can do it. Because the important thing is the core, and the core is the taqwa. The core is the bond and the link and this journey, collective journey towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. People from different backgrounds take on this journey, and we can be together with them. I think Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He chose these holy mothers for such holy progeny, He was setting the standards very high, not giving the excuse to anyone in today's life to make this as an excuse. Now, at the same time, I don't want my brothers and sisters to argue, when they, because this has happened quite frequently in our community, that someone, a brother or a sister approaches their parents, say, X is proposing, so now we have to get married. And if the mother or the father says, well, we have an objection, a real objection, the first reply comes from the brother is, well, you're not accepting her because she's from a different culture. Well, maybe not. Maybe the parents have a valid point why you are not ready to get married now, or she does not fit into our expectation. She's not the right person for you. You are not ready even for marriage. But obviously our brothers are well informed of history now and say, no, you're rejecting her because she's not Pakistani, or she's not Iraqi, or she's not Iranian. So I don't want my brothers who are watching this, or the sisters, to use this as an excuse. In fact, I really advise them from experience to really get their parents' approval, to really aim for that. They have more experience than you. They have seen life. They love you and they want what's best for you. And plus, it is probably your fault that you left it until you are 25 or 35, that you're trying to discuss a very important topic like your marriage with someone, i.e. your parents, who you've ignored building the bridge with. So my advice to my brothers and sisters, make sure the bridge between you and your parents is there. There is that channel of communication. There is that love between you. So when it comes to an important topic that you might disagree on, there is that communication that happens based on taqwa.
Speaking of parenting, Imam al-Rida alayhi salam wasn't able to see his father much because his father was always imprisoned. He may be imprisoned in Basra, in Iran, in many other cities. How was it for the people at the time? Because their Imam was always imprisoned, they didn't have a leader at the time. How did Imam al-Rida go about this and make sure that the people are still following the Ahlul Bayt?
Ahsantum, the point of the struggle of the Muslim community when Imam Musa al-Kadhim salamullahi alayh was for many years moved from one prison into another in Iraq, and how that well-needed connection between the people and their leader was missed for many years because of this imprisonment. It was a great tragedy. The humanity as a whole and the Muslim Ummah has lost many years worth of the knowledge of the Imam, of the wisdom of the Imam, which we would have documented, exchanged, discussed, spread, because these Imams are sent as inheritors to the Prophet of Islam to spread this wisdom, the wisdom that is needed for humanity to develop and advance and solve its problems. And until today, we still are facing so many challenges across the globe. So we should think of these years as a loss to humanity, really. And generally even the ghaibah of the Imam, Sahib al-Zaman, the occultation of our current Imam, we should think about it with regret, with missed opportunities, with a solution that is being delayed and being far away from us because of our own problems, of our own challenges. And here I'm talking about even the Muslims, even if the followers of Ahlul Bayt themselves, because they are probably the main reason, the Muslims, and their lack of readiness why the Imam is not with them today. Imam Rida alayhi salam, whilst in Medina, fulfilled his duty in spreading Islam and challenging the different currents that were there at the time. We all know that during the Abbasid state, there were actually many people with not very Islamic ideologies moving in society. They were creating doubts in the minds of people. They were using that sort of freedom of expression or exchange of knowledge that was happening, and the fact that the ruler himself is not really concerned with the affairs of and the building of the Muslim society as an Islamic society. He was more concerned about his dictatorship, the rule, the advancement of the state, how much the state expands geographically. But he was not concerned, many of the Abbasid rulers were not concerned about the character of the Muslims. So a lot of atheism spread, a lot of doubts about Islam spread, and it was really Imam Rida alayhi salam alongside the other Imams, despite Imam Musa al-Kadhim alayhi salam being in prison, the one who maintained this defense of the Islamic ideology, to present Islam like what we need to do today, in a modern way, in a way that will answer all the questions and it will answer all the doubts in the minds of the people, in a modern, approachable way, not just by referring to the Quran like what our brothers unfortunately do in certain parts of our society. They just quote the Quran with no application to modern life. You know, they say Islam is the answer, and one Muslim asks them a simple question, their answer is a principle or a twisted principle in their mind, something from 14 centuries ago. No, we believe that Quran is for all times, Islam is for all times, but you need to present it in the right way.
When we say presenting the Quran and Islam in a modern way, what do you mean about that? Because today we have many scholars and many lecturers, not just scholars, that sometimes interpret the Quran completely different to what another scholar or lecturer would. So how can we as a nation and as people who don't really have the time, unfortunately, to study as much about Islam as we should, how can we know what is the correct modern interpretation of Islam and the Holy Quran?
No, of course, when we talk about Islam and Islamic studies, we have freedom of thought. The text is there, the scriptures are there. Whoever wants to come and study it, they're more than welcome to come and study it. But as an ummah, as a nation, as people who organize lectures and activities, when we come to choose the speakers, we really have to choose from those who follow the best. Alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, through the Prophet, the Imams, the establishment of the Hawza and the scholars, and how our scholars as a group have inherited the knowledge of the Imams and have developed it throughout history. Alhamdulillah, Allah has never denied us correct religious leadership. The Hawza is there, the Maraja are there. We have several Maraja who've written about Tafsir al-Quran. Sayyid Abu Qasim al-Khu'i wrote a small book about Tafsir of the Quran. Muhammad Baqir al-Sadr spoke in many lectures about modern explanation of the Quran. Allama al-Tabatabai wrote that incredible encyclopedia of 20 books over 20 years, Al-Mizan, about Quran. He's a faqih, he's a philosopher. And we have other maraja as well in modern time who have written Tafsir al-Quran. So I think when it comes as a community and society, when we choose a speaker to come at an event or when we listen to someone, we have to make sure that these people are referring, taking their knowledge from the best resources, from the best sources that we have. And these sources are always available. The challenge is that we have always shortage of speakers. So we tend to sometimes compromise on the standards. But I hope we can have a long-term strategy that we develop our speakers, we develop our brothers and sisters slowly by linking them appropriately with our scholars, with the Hawza, with the Marja'iyya. So when it comes to the time of need, they're available for us.
But it's not just that, because yes, alhamdulillah, we do have very good scholars and who have interpreted the Quran in an amazing way that actually does help us in our day-to-day life. However, we have some scholars or lecturers, let's say, not scholars, who would use this interpretation differently, in the sense that a lot of our community today are learning are being taught what isn't actually the right way of Shia Islam. Like they're being told more to hate than to accept and to be loving, which is what our Imams actually taught us. You know, all of our Imams, alhamdulillah, have taught us to love and to accept the other, even if they're from, you know, a different school of thought or from different belief. We're still meant to open our arms and teach them Islam.
Absolutely. No, I totally agree with you. I think what you're referring here to is this tone of sectarianism that is spreading amongst the whole of the Muslim Ummah. Obviously, events in the Middle East have played, the political events in the Middle East. And here I stress that sectarianism is a political problem, not a religious problem. And it is the event in the Middle East that are fueling this sectarian tension, which is unfortunately has spread across the whole of the Muslim Ummah and the whole of the globe now. Of course, you can have very well-informed academics, lecturers, speakers, with all due respect to all of them, but they miss the core value of Islam. They could be, as you said, well-informed of all the books that are written by Allama al-Tabatabai and Muhammad Baqir al-Sadr and other philosophers, but they probably miss the core values of Islam. The values that our Imams, the Prophet ﷺ, are leaders of the whole of humanity. That when Al-Imam Al-Hassan alayhi salam or Imam Al-Sadiq alayhi salam were walking the streets of Medina, and a man from Sham, from Syria, under the influence of the propaganda of Muawiyah, comes face to face with the Imam and he says, "Are you the Imam?" He says, "Yes, I am." Then he verbally abuses the Imam, insults the Imam. The Imam says, "You look like a stranger. You look like if you are from out of this town. If you need help, come to our house." We have many people on YouTube now who are verbally abusing us, insulting us, but how many of us are treating them exactly in the same way that the Imam is treating that man from Syria? The Imam knew this man is being brainwashed, he's been under the propaganda, and the propaganda now against the followers of Ahlul Bayt is global. It's been funded by millions of dollars from oil money in the Middle East. So there are a lot of people on this propaganda, but where are our ethics? Where are our values? Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, his manners helped one man who now we kiss the soil he's buried in, Imam al-Hurr, al-Hurr ibn Yazid al-Riyahi, when he switched sides. If you take a snapshot of Karbala, al-Hurr would have been going to the hellfire a moment before the battle started. But he switched sides, so you never know this man who's recording all these YouTube clips or coming to university to the Ashura awareness stall and accusing the followers of Ahlul Bayt this and that. You never know, he might switch sides. You just have to maintain the core values and the ethics of Islam.
But how can we, because we don't have the values and that belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala like our holy Imams, and inshallah like we try to become like at least 1% of what they has, but because we don't have that, how can we as human beings try and open our arms? Because we hear these stories and we are touched by them, but when it comes to reality, when we're faced with a situation where people will start hating on us, we tend to react with anger instead of what our holy Imams have taught us. So how do we actually go about it? What do you recommend us to do?
I recommend to be proactive. We do not wait for the tests to arrive. We are proactive in preparing ourselves for the test to come. By that I mean, we surround ourselves proactively with these stories of the manners of Imam al-Hassan, the manners of Imam al-Sadiq, the manners of Imam al-Hussein salamullahi alayhi. We surround ourselves, so it becomes like, subconsciously we live the stories in our mind. But this is not the practice yet, as you correctly said. But the more we surround ourselves with these stories, the more our environment is like this, the easier it will become to do the following step, which is to be proactive, to approach those who we know have a problem with us, not to wait for them to approach us. You approach them once, you'll be faced with a confrontation likely, and then you build that, what we call in Arabic, malaka. You build this ability in yourself, that resilient character, that you take on the insult, you take on the attack, you take on that, oh, you Muslims are backwards, or you followers of Ahlul Bayt are mushrikeen, or you Muslims go back to your countries, or you followers of Ali, you worship him, and all these lies about the Muslims and about the followers of Ahlul Bayt. You train yourself. If you wait for it to come, you will be caught unaware and you will fail in the test. But if you are proactive about it, it happens once, you get angry, it happens twice, you get angry, in fact you can't continue the conversation, so you better say, "Stop brother, thank you very much, I don't think I can continue like this." Walk away. It happens once, twice, after 5, 10 times, you're more able to face the challenge. So my suggestion is, surround yourselves with these stories, listen to them, live them, think about them, but don't wait for the test to come. Make sure you proactively approach someone, and it will take several times until you build this power within you to overcome the shaitan within that wants to take you away from the right path.
Is this what Imam al-Rida alayhi salam did, in the sense that because he was living in the Abbasid Empire, Abbasid rule at the time, many people actually question why and how come he actually joined the Abbasid rule and the tyrants at the time? Is this where he kind of like joined to make sure that Islam is spreading in the right way, or is there more to it?
There is more to it. 2 years before his martyrdom, approximately year 201 Lil Hijrah, the Abbasi dictator occupying the chair of Khilafah, Al-Ma'mun, who killed his brother to become a Khalifa, so he's the sort of man that would kill to remain in power, realized that there was a growing unrest in the Muslim states. And the unrest mainly was because of the followers of Ali ibn Abi Talib, the people who inherited from Ali this character of rejecting falsehood, rejecting oppression, rejecting a dictator, not to follow the rulers like the sheep, like a herd, which is unfortunately what has happened over 1,000 years in lots of parts of the Muslim state, until a spark of hope was there in Tunisia, that the Muslims have woken up and say, well, actually we need to talk about this, we need to talk about our policies, not just as some of Friday prayer preachers would say, no, obey the ruler, whoever he is, whether he's sort of committing all sorts of crimes, you should obey him because this is the Sunnah. That's not the Sunnah, that's the fabricated Sunnah. This is the propaganda of the Umayyads and the Abbasids. So, Al-Alawiyin, the supporters of Ali ibn Abi Talib, were growing in numbers and in power, and they were causing unrest. And the Ma'mun could not face them. So he was very clever. He was very clever. He wanted a way to sort of deflate the situation, a way to absorb the pressure, a way to distract those people from the focus that the ruler is an illegitimate ruler. He's there, he's causing, injustices. So his strategy was actually to make the Imam the Khalifa, not to make him the heir of the throne. So he sent after him from Medina all the way to Khurasan, modern day Iran, and he offered him to become the Khalifa. And the Imam obviously rejected. And here is a lesson for us, that political posts are not the aim themselves. When we talk about the difference between the Shias and the Sunnis, I'm in pain when I hear my brothers and sisters on both sides, the Shias and the Sunnis, when they talk about this, they talk as if it was a political struggle between Ali ibn Abi Talib and some of the other companions. It was not a political struggle. Politics is part of it. But our Imams are inheritors of the Sunnah of the Prophet. The simple answer to what is the difference between the Sunnis and the Shias is the following. There is a difference in who do you take the Sunnah from. It's not a political problem. Politics is part of it, but it's not the bigger picture. The bigger picture is the deen, is the Sunnah. So the Imam rejected the political post. So Al-Ma'mun offered him, he stepped down the offer. He said, fine, I'll make you the heir to the throne. The Imam rejected. And then Al-Ma'mun threatened Al-Imam to kill him. You either accept or I'll kill you. So the Imam did not see a value, and he was absolutely right, in going for that challenge and ending his life. Yet he demonstrated another of his sunnah, which is he demonstrated a side that would remain a lesson for all of us. He accepted the post with certain conditions, under threat of course, under the threat of ending his life, that he will not interfere, he will not appoint anyone, he will not dismiss anyone from the post. He's the heir to the throne. He's the first minister, as we say, or is the Khalifa next in line. But he would not appoint anyone in the state. He would not dismiss anyone from any post. He would not approve, he would not reject of any document, order within the state. So that was the sort of heir to the throne. He was under threat. He spent approximately 2 years before his martyrdom in that post, until Al-Ma'mun realized that his life, even with this unique post, that he's not interfering with anyone, is a threat. So he decided to end the Imam's life as well.
How come he felt it was a threat for our holy Imam to be in that position?
Because he realized that he did not get what he wanted from him. He wanted him as an heir to the throne to sort of deflate the situation, absorb the pressure, thinking that he will trick the followers of Ali, who are scattered amongst the Muslim Ummah, that now your man Ali ibn Musa Rida is next in line, so calm down, let go. That didn't work. It simply did not work. The unique reservations that Imam Rida took that post with made the people aware that, okay, he is the heir of the throne, but he's not interfering with anything, he's not doing anything, he's almost being kept under house arrest. And there was a famous incident of Salat al-Eid in which Al-Ma'mun, attempting to absorb the Imam into the system, he said, Ali ibn Musa Rida, why don't you lead the Eid prayer? So the Imam would say, I will only lead it under my conditions. I will come out to lead it the way I would want to do it, according to the way of my grandfather Rasulullah and the way of my grandfather Ali ibn Abi Talib. The Ma'mun initially accepted, but then he regretted that. And this comes back to modernity and the ease of life. The historians say that the Imam accepted, so the news spread that Ali ibn Musa Rida tomorrow will be coming out to lead the Eid prayer. So this is to answer your question of what happened, what did the Imam do? This was one of small incidents in which it backfired on Al-Ma'mun, it backfired on the Abbasi establishment. The Ma'mun sent a whole caravan of army leaders and generals and their horses to come out with the Imam. So they waited on his house door. The Imam wore his new clothes, wore a white turban, historically documented, took stick, asked his servicemen to do the same, to appear like him, and he came out barefooted. He stood on his doorsteps, there were people around, the neighbors, the army, and he started doing takbir, him and his servicemen behind him. And the hayba of the whole situation led the whole of the army generals to come down from their horses out of respect to the Imam, that didn't want to join their caravan, but them to join his caravan of being barefooted, walking towards the main mosque to pray Salat al-Eid. And every short distance he would stop and do his takbir, and the thousands and thousands of Muslims would repeat behind him. This mawkib, this caravan, was heading towards the mosque, and it was clearly Imam al-Rida appearing as the leader of this society. Guess what happened? The advisors of Ma'mun quickly gave him the advice that you better stop this man from reaching the mosque, otherwise it will backfire. Halfway, Imam al-Rida sent a messenger Ma'mun sent a messenger to Imam al-Rida, said, we don't want to trouble you anymore. You've done enough. Go back. So he did not lead the prayer.
So beautiful. But when we look at the life of Imam Ali al-Rida, it took him a while to actually give birth to a son. And many people say this is a test for the followers of Ahlul Bayt. How so?
Indeed, it was a major test. Unfortunately, in modern days, the followers of Ahlul Bayt think collectively, because they follow Islam and the authentic Islam, the Islam according to Ahlul Bayt, is that they're not being tested as a nation. So individual tests. It's not the case. There are individual based tests for each and single one of us, and there are what we call social tests, which all Muslims, all followers of Ahlul Bayt, they need to face. And one of these tests was the test of the birth of Imam al-Jawad. Imam al-Rida alayhi salam became an imam after the martyrdom of his father, Imam al-Kadhim, in his 30s. In his 30s, I'm sure you're aware historically, people at the time got married quite early, maybe in their early 20s, and they had children. Imam al-Rida was in his 30s without a son. And the prophecies and the ahadith state clearly that Imam al-Rida should be, and he was, the 8th Imam, and that his son Muhammad is the 9th Imam. The Imam in his 30s now without a son. He reached his 40s and there was no son. He became 45, quite old actually for the time. And the followers of Ahlul Bayt were watching an Imam without a son. There were many question marks, many eyebrows were raised, many doubts, many people questioned the Imam. And here is a lesson for us, that we should trust Islam, Al-Quran wa Sunnah. Trust what the verses talk about. If hijab does not make sense to you, trust the Quran. If a certain sunnah of how you perform hajj it is not making sense to you, trust the sunnah. Trust the prophecies of the Prophet. Trust what the Imams are telling you about how you should treat your wife, how you should treat your neighbors, how you should treat non-Muslims, how you should live your life, how should you lead your life, how should you prepare to live your life. What will happen in the afterlife? Trust Allah. It was only until 47 when Imam al-Jawad was born, and we have a hadith to say that there was no child with greater blessings born to the Ummah than Imam al-Jawad, because with his birth he nullified all the doubts that Imam al-Rida was indeed, like he has always been, the true Imam, and it was his son Imam al-Jawad. Imam al-Jawad was born just 7 years before the martyrdom of his father, and he took the Imam's duties and posts quite early in life. But his birth in year 195 was the greatest blessings that has clarified a lot of doubts and misconceptions in the minds of the followers of Ahlul Bayt. But it has a great lesson for us to wait, be patient and persevere with the wisdom that we have.
You mentioned about us trusting. And when it comes to trusting, inshallah, when our holy Imam is to reappear, we would all have trust in him. But there's just one question. When our Imams are to ask us to do something or to do an act, are we as Muslims allowed to question them to why we're doing this certain act that they want us to do?
If you believe in him as a wise political leader, you'll question him. But if you believe in him as an inheritor of Rasulullah, an inheritor of the divinely appointed, and he is a divinely appointed leader, then you would not question him. Because the question here, the issue here is not about what's right and what's wrong. And the question here is, how much do we believe in Allah and His Messenger and in these inheritors? We're not saying the Imams are prophets, but we're saying they are divinely appointed people. The Quran is very clear that there is the prophets and there are divinely appointed inheritors of the prophets who would carry on the duties of leading the Ummah. They would have access to the knowledge that the Ummah needs, the whole of humanity needs. So Imam al-Mahdi, Ajjalallahu lahu al-Faraj, like any of our Imams, he's there as a divinely appointed leader. He's not there to be questioned. And in fact, these doubts that the followers of Ahlul Bayt and the Muslims had on the position of these Imams, that has led to the current tragedy that we are in. A lot of people believe that Ali ibn Abi Talib was the best, but they questioned, okay, so we're not going to ask anyone about our Salah except Ali. We're not going to ask anyone about our Hajj except Ali. But he was young, was he making the right decisions? We're not sure. So they chose someone else, and the result is what we have today. And the same thing happened to Imam al-Hussein, Imam al-Hassan, and all the Imams. So I hope 1,200 years so far of waiting should have given us enough time to accumulate experience. And this is what our scholars describe as the accumulation of generations of experience until the promised day, that the Imams, Islam is a perfect ideology that is worth sacrificing for, and that the Imams are the truly divinely appointed leaders. If we don't reach that stage, then there's no point of having an Imam, because Allah left us with 11 Imams, and we all know historically how we treated them. And I hope no one listening to this program will say, no, it was the people of the time who treated them that way. No, not really. We still raise the same doubts about the details of Islam. We question the hijab, we question the salah, we question the way we should treat our parents, our children, our neighbors. We don't offer fi sabilillah when we have a battle. We shy away. When there's a bit of pressure, we run away. We compromise our faith. So still, we're falling into the same traps. We're failing the same tests as the people before us. I hope no one looks sort of from above and looks down on the people before him. You should be praying for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give you support that you accumulate from all the experience and build on from it. We are more ready to offer for fi sabilillah. We are stronger in our faith and our fellowship of the Imams.
Inshallah. Thank you very much for joining us on the show.
Yakumullah.
And thank you very much for watching Beneath the Surface. See you next time.